Thanks very much, Ghada. Welcome everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam alaikum.
The first thing I'd like to say is people said to me today and as the convoy ended, well, would you do this again? And the answer for me, and I think the answer is for you, yes, yes, yes. With lessons learned, with some things done better, but yes, we would do this again. And from what people have said today, people want to do something like this again, and that's something we need to consider in the discussions that we have this afternoon. We had a choice on the 10th of January. We could have said, this kind of thing takes about 3 or 4 or even 5 months to organise. I'm looking at Sophia, who's organised things like this over a longer time frame. And we could have done it that way and sent a convoy around May or June into Gaza with a higher level of organisation, we would hope. But I think it would have been smaller. I think fewer people would have taken the journey, because the alternative was to move while people's passions were at their height, while the bombs were falling on the women and children of Gaza, and to move as we did enabled very, very large numbers of people to take part. And we did pull off something really quite extraordinary, to be able to organise ourselves, all of us to organise ourselves in that short space of time, and to make the journey together. And people's enthusiasm is undimmed, because coming into the meeting this afternoon, everybody is talking about not if Viva Palestina should continue, but how Viva Palestina should continue, what it is that we should do next. People will know that Arthur's boat, which was one of the symbols of the convoy, I mean, who else but the British would take a boat across the North African desert with the hope of being able to launch it in Gaza harbour. Arthur's boat was thrown back at the border of Rafah by the Egyptian authorities, but undeterred, Arthur has now got that boat to Venice, which is a good place to have a boat. It's not going to stay there too long, because a flotilla of boats is heading from Larnaca, from Cyprus, to break the blockade by sea, to go into Gaza harbour, either in May or June, and Arthur will be piloting Viva Palestina 1 on that flotilla. Thank you. After leaving Cairo, I spent a few days in Athens as a bit of downtime, but also trying to source other boats and partners, friends in Greece who would be part of that convoy. And there's a great feeling. Yvonne's in touch with people as well. We're all in touch with people who want to be part of that convoy by sea, which is something which I hope we can discuss and very much can take off. We think we've sourced a place for a Viva Palestina shop. The venue is particularly special. It's right opposite the coffee shop where the decision to launch Viva Palestina was made, which puts it round the back of the Israeli embassy. From the back of this shop you can see into the Israeli embassy, which seems to me a very good place to have the unofficial embassy of Palestine. One brother from Batley asked me, well, could we have open shops elsewhere? And you can see I'm looking around, there's quite a lot of retail experience in the room. And that's certainly one thing that we might want to consider. There are many, many other ways in which this idea of Viva Palestina can work along the different avenues that Salma described, directly generating aid, being able to lever in more aid, because what's remarkable is with a shoestring operation and a small team of volunteers, we were able to be the catalyst for levering in a much bigger amount of aid into Gaza, heading directly through the border. So we'd like to be in a position to have some resources for Viva Palestina, to be an even bigger catalyst for more aid and more direct solidarity with the people of Palestine. And that, again, is something that we should discuss. There were difficulties. Ghada referred to some of them, and those difficulties, for me, showed the importance of brotherhood, of sisterhood, of comradeship, and a sense of self-discipline and of organisation. I mean, let me mention a couple that people really won't know, which is, with 24 hours to go to the launch, so this is the Friday before the Saturday that we left on that glorious morning from Hyde Park, the border which we had confidently expected to be open between Algeria and Morocco was closed. And we were told it was closed permanently, it would not be opened. For 36 hours, 3 of us, and there was no need for more than 3 of us to lose 36 hours sleep. There's no need for everybody else to worry about it. This is the importance of organisation. 3 of us, myself, Sabah and George, came up with a negotiating strategy, pressure on the Algerians, and also alternatives. We got an alternative which was to have a sailing, a Mediterranean ferry sailing, changed by 6 hours so we could make it to go directly from Spain to Algeria, which had a downside because it would have meant rewarding Algerian intransigence by cutting out the people of Morocco from our journey. The second alternative that we had organised was to go directly from Marseille to Tunis. The third, in discussion with the Gaddafi Foundation, was by amphibious landing craft to take the entire convoy from Genoa directly into the port of Tripoli. As it happened, we didn't need to exercise any of those alternatives, although all of them were organised, because what we said to the Algerian authorities, in rather undiplomatic language, was this: we will tell the world that we were stopped from taking aid to the people of Gaza, not by the Israelis, not by Rafah, but by a stupid border dispute between 2 Arab countries who ought to know better and put the interests of the Palestinians above their petty dispute. And they backed down in the face of that, and we were confident in saying that because we knew that from around the country people were gathering in Hyde Park in their hundreds. And that's what gave us the strength, that's what gave us some power in a situation where we're surrounded by people who appear to have so much power. These Arab governments who are not really worthy of the name in most of the cases, who spend most of their time with those guns and those resources pointing them to keep their own people down rather than to act as the liberators of others, something we experienced, all of us, firsthand. So we did face those difficulties, but we got through those difficulties and it strengthened us. And if anyone was in any doubt about the wisdom of what we did, about the morality of what we did, then I think it was dispelled as we entered Gaza. For me it was dispelled, any lingering doubt was dispelled just before that, on the Sinai Road, the last road in Egypt as we were heading towards Al Arish and then up to the border. Because the Egyptian authorities, as everyone knows who was on the convoy, did their level best to keep us away from the people. But by the time we hit the Sinai Desert, they couldn't keep us away from the limited number of people who were there. The women came out and were wailing. The children were out from not villages, but just handfuls of houses. And you saw that the hope that we were representing, the hope that we were bringing, was not just to the besieged people of Gaza, but to the potential liberators of Gaza and of Palestine, the mass of our brothers and sisters in Egypt and across the Arab world. And for me, that was a turning point in the entire conception of the convoy. Then, of course, we saw what life was like in Gaza. We saw what life was like for people. And some of us were fortunate enough, privileged enough, to meet the democratically elected Prime Minister of Palestine, Ismail Haniyeh. And I should explain about that. This was on the last night. It was not something which was possible for everybody to do, much as I would have liked everybody on the convoy to meet Ismail Haniyeh and the leadership of the government in Gaza. It's not possible because virtually every leader of prominence in Hamas has been assassinated by the Israelis. That night we went to the house of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, a man who was killed after Fajr prayer in his wheelchair by a missile. We met one of the greatest heroes, greatest leaders that Palestine has ever known. We went to his house, Abdulaziz Rantisi, who himself was assassinated. And we knew, and we know that Ismail Haniyeh is high up on Benjamin Netanyahu's assassination list. And therefore, it wasn't possible for him to meet large numbers of us. We simply had to select 10 people who could meet him secretly. And most of those 10, only 2 of us, knew that we were even meeting him at that. And he was incredibly generous with his time. This is a man who hadn't seen his family for 80 days. He'd been underground for 80 days. He'd not seen his close friends for 80 days. He'd only been surrounded by 1 or 2 people who knew his location at any particular time. We were privileged enough to meet him in his house, on his first day back in his house after 80 days, and the only day that he'll be in his house if anybody from Israeli intelligence is listening. He gave us 2 hours of his time. 2 hours of his time. Every minute of that time, he was at risk from assassination. And he didn't just know that we'd led a convoy, he knew the detail of the convoy. He told us about the Tunisian woman who gave the shawl to be handed over to people in Palestine, to women in Palestine. About the Moroccan woman who'd given her wedding ring.